Welcome to the Baboom Baboom podcast, your go-to source for expert tips on car stereo installation, vehicle wiring, and all things wiring related. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, we've got the advice to help you power up your ride. Get ready to crank up the volume on your knowledge and make your next wiring project a success.
All right, time to crank it up and dive deep into car audio upgrades, specifically amps. You want to boost your car's sound. And luckily, we've got an awesome guide from the experts. Baboom Baboom! They really know their stuff. I'm excited to break this down with our audio guru. Looking at this guide, I'm seeing some things that are making my inner gearhead super happy. What's the first thing that jumps out at you? What do people need to know before they even touch their toolbox?
Well, you know me. Safety first. And Baboom Baboom is right there with me on that. The very first thing they emphasize is disconnecting the negative terminal of the battery.
Got it. Disconnect the battery.
Yeah.
But is it really that important? Seems kind of basic.
It's like you wouldn't rewire your house with the power still on, would you?
Okay, good point. But my car's in a house.
True. But the idea is the same. Your car's electrical system is full of circuits, and messing with them while the power's on is dangerous. Disconnect the battery, no risk of shorts, sparks, or even getting a shock.
Yeah. I don't want to become part of the circuit. Safety first, for sure. Loud music second. So battery's disconnected. What's the next step in this amp adventure?
First, let's get our gear together. The guide recommends a good amplifier wiring kit. It's the perfect starter pack.
Okay. Makes sense. What's usually in one of these kits?
You'll find everything you need. Power and ground wires, those are important. A fuse holder, RCA cables to connect your head unit to the amp, and speaker wire to go from the amp to your speakers.
Awesome. One-stop shop. So we've got a kit. We're being safe. Feeling good. Time to install the amp right.
Not so fast. We need to plan where it's going to go. The guide suggests a few places. Under the seat, in the trunk, or behind the rear seats.
Yeah. Got to make sure it fits. I can already picture a nice, powerful amp under my seat, popping out those bass lines.
I need to be thinking about aesthetics. It's important to make it look good. But practicality comes first.
Okay. I get it. So what else do we need to consider?
You need to think about the environment. The amp needs to be somewhere dry. Moisture and electronics are a bad combination. It needs to be mounted securely, too, so it doesn't rattle around when you're driving. And don't forget about ventilation. It needs to stay cool, especially if you're pushing it hard. And of course, you need enough space to work with the wiring.
All right, you've convinced me. Function over fashion, at least when it comes to amps. So let's say we found the perfect spot. Amps in, wires are ready. What's the first connection we make?
The guide says to start with the power cable. It carries power from your battery to the amp, but there's a really important detail about the fuse holder.
Oh, what about it?
It has to be within 18 inches of the battery.
Really? Why so specific?
It's all about safety. The fuse protects your car's electrical system. If there's a power surge, the fuse blows, and that cuts off the power. It prevents damage to the battery, the wiring, or even the amp itself.
So it's like a safety guard. It protects everything from electrical problems.
Exactly. And keeping it close to the battery means the protection is as close to the power source as possible.
Fuse close to the battery. No electrical fires. Got it. Now what?
Next, we run the RCA cables from the head unit to the amp. These carry the audio signal. And you want to keep them away from the power cable as much as possible.
Why is that? It's all just wiring, right?
Not exactly. The power cable carries a lot of current, and that can create interference, electrical noise. If the RCA cables are too close, you might hear buzzing or distortion, and nobody wants their music to sound messed up.
For sure. I want my music to sound crystal clear. Okay, power cable and RCA cables are done. What's next?
Now it's time for the ground wire. It might seem like a small thing, but it's really important for the amp to work, right?
Grounding. I kind of get it, but can you explain it a bit more?
Imagine plumbing. You have pipes that bring water in, but you also need a drain to take the water away. Grounding is like the drain for electricity. It lets extra electrical energy flow back to the battery safely. It completes the circuit.
So it's like a pressure release valve. It prevents electrical buildup.
Exactly, and the guide is really specific about how to do it right. You need to find a solid metal point on your car's frame, like a bolt or a screw, and connect the ground wire directly to it.
So I just attach it to any piece of metal.
Well, there's one important thing. You have to remove any paint or coating where you connect the ground wire.
Really? Is that necessary? It's just a bit of paint.
That paint stops the flow of electricity. You need a direct metal-to-metal connection. It's like trying to jumpstart a car with dirty battery terminals. You need a clean connection for the energy to flow.
Clean connections, clean sound. Makes sense. So power's connected, amp is grounded. What about getting the sound to the speakers?
That's where the speaker wire comes in. And the thickness of the wire is important.
Seriously, there's more to it than just plugging things in.
Yep. But we'll talk about all that in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, sounds good.
Need top-quality electrical wire? Baboom Baboom's got you covered. Get your 6-pack today. Each combo comes in 6 different colors and a total of 600 feet of wire. Perfect for any project, and you won't find a better price in the industry. Head over to baboombaboom.com now to snag yours. That's baboombaboom.com.
Okay, we're back. Ready for the next level of car audio? We've got the amp in place, the wiring looks great, and we've tested everything, like pros.
That's right. Now it's time to connect the amp to your speakers. And remember, choosing the right speaker wire is important.
Okay. Remind me why the thickness of the wire matters so much. Doesn't it just carry sound?
Well, it's all about resistance. Think of a water hose. A wider hose can handle more water easily, but a narrow hose restricts the flow. Same with speaker wire.
So a thicker wire lets the signal flow better, like a superhighway for sound.
Exactly. The Baboom Baboom guide gives good advice on choosing the right gauge. For powerful systems or long runs, like over 50 feet, they recommend 10 gauge or 12 gauge wire.
50 feet? Is that even possible in a car?
It's more common in bigger vehicles or custom setups where speakers are further from the amp, but even in a regular car, those rear speakers can be surprisingly far.
So thicker wires for long distances or powerful systems. What about for a normal setup?
14 gauge wire is a good choice for most systems. It's a good balance between performance and cost.
Okay, 14 gauge. Got it. Now, I remember the guide mentioned using thicker gauge for longer runs. Does distance really make that much difference?
It can. Even a small increase in distance can affect the sound, especially in the lower frequencies.
You mean the bass?
Exactly. The longer the wire, the more resistance the signal faces. That can lead to less power and clarity.
So my bass could sound weak if I use the wrong wire.
Yep. That's why it's important to match the wire gauge to the distance and power.
Okay, I'm sold on wire gauge. Now connecting the speaker wire seems simple. Red to positive, black to negative.
Right. You got the colors right. But there's more to it than that. You need to make sure the connections are really good.
Okay, how do we do that?
The guide says to use wire strippers to expose just enough bare wire for a good connection. You don't want any extra strands sticking out. And make sure the wire is firmly in the terminal.
Wire strippers. Are those hard to use?
Not at all. They're designed to make it easy. There are tons of videos online if you need help. The key is choosing the right size for your wire and stripping away just enough insulation without damaging the wire.
Got it. Be careful. So strip the wires, make good connections, time to crank it up.
Hold on. Remember what we talked about earlier?
Refresh my memory.
Testing. The Baboom Baboom guide is really clear about this. Test everything before you put everything back together.
Right. Makes sense. What should I be listening for?
First, look at everything. Make sure all the connections are tight, no loose wires or exposed connections, and that everything is neat.
So it should look as good as it sounds.
Exactly. Then reconnect the battery, power on the system, and give it a test run. Play some music, adjust the volume and settings, and listen closely.
For what? Sparks?
No. Listen for any problems. Distortion, crackling, buzzing, anything that sounds wrong. If you hear something, it means something's not connected right. Or there's a problem with a component.
Like a final sound check.
Exactly. Take your time, listen carefully, and once you're sure everything is working right, you can move on to the fun part.
Oh, there's more. I thought the fun part was listening to music.
Well, we've done the basic setup. Now it's time to fine-tune your system and get that perfect sound. That's a whole other topic.
We're back for the final part of our car audio adventure. We've got the amp installed, all the wiring is done, we even did a sound check. Feeling pretty good about it. But you were saying there's more to it than just getting the music playing.
Right. We've got the basics down, but now we can make your car audio sound amazing.
Okay. Tell me more. What's the secret?
It's all about fine-tuning. Think of it like this. You've built a powerful engine. Now you need to tune it to get the most out of it.
So we're still working on the system, but instead of tools, we're using knobs and buttons.
Pretty much. Your amp has settings that let you control the sound, how it's processed, and how it goes to your speakers.
Okay. Sounds good. Where do we start?
First, gain settings. This is where you control how much the amp boosts the signal.
So if I turn the gain all the way up, It'll be super loud.
Not necessarily. Too much gain can cause distortion. The sound gets clipped. It'll sound harsh.
So it's about finding the right balance, loud but clear.
Exactly. Start with the gain low,
Yeah.
then slowly turn it up. Listen for any distortion.
Okay, got it. What else can we adjust?
Crossovers. These control which frequencies go to which speakers.
Okay, frequencies.
Different sounds have different frequencies, like low bass or high-pitched sounds. And different speakers are designed for different frequencies.
So the crossovers make sure the right sounds go to the right speakers.
Exactly. You don't want your tweeters trying to play bass or your woofers trying to play high notes.
Thing makes sense. How do I adjust the crossovers?
Most amps have simple controls. You can set the points where the signal is split.
Seems a bit technical.
It's not too bad. You can look up the specs for your speakers. They usually say what crossover frequencies to use.
Okay, and then I just experiment.
Exactly. Find what sounds best to you.
Right. We've done gain, we've done crossovers. What else is there?
Equalization.
What's that?
It's like adjusting the bass and treble.
So I can make the bass louder.
It's more than that. You can adjust specific frequencies to make up for the way sound behaves in your car.
My car affects the sound.
Yep. The shape of your car,
Yeah.
the materials inside, it all makes a difference.
Wow. Who knew?
And equalization lets you adjust for that. Most head units have equalizers built in.
This is amazing. I never knew there was so much to car audio.
It's a whole world of sound.
This has been awesome. We went from being scared of wires to fine-tuning our own sound system.
Remember, trust your ears. Experiment. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Car audio is all about exploring and personalizing.
I love it. And who knows? Maybe you'll be the expert someday, sharing your knowledge with the world.
But for now, that's it for our deep dive into car amplifiers. We've covered a lot of ground, from safety to wiring to fine-tuning. I hope you feel empowered to take your car audio to the next level. But before we go, here's something to think about. We talked about sound inside the car, but what about outside the car? Could we personalize sounds for people walking by? Or even have cars communicate with each other using sound? That's a deep dive for another day. Thanks for joining us.
Need top-quality electrical wire? Baboom Baboom's got you covered. Get your 6-pack today. Each combo comes in 6 different colors and a total of 600 feet of wire. Perfect for any project, and you won't find a better price in the industry. Head over to baboombaboom.com now to snag yours. That's baboombaboom.com.